Question is, how long will it take the bots? How long do we think it's going to take the bots this time? So, I've never used Blender before. I have no idea how to use it at all. So, just like when I learned Unity, this might take a while. But I would like to learn how to use Blender so I can make some 3D assets. Even if, I don't, like, make a bunch of my own assets for this dumb little horror game I'm trying to make. I would like to be able to know how to make some in general for later stuff I create. It would be good to know. I don't know how complicated or not it will be. My objective is to make at least a cave. I would like to make a cave. That I can make a meat cave. With a horror game. Because the horror game, a lot of it takes place in a meat cave. So I'd like to make a meat cave. You know? I would enjoy making a meat cave. Anyway. Hello. Hi. Bonjour. Sorry. No. I keep doing that. What was it? Konnichiwa? Something like that. I almost forgot that, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion came out. Man, that voice actor. I don't want to make fun of the voice actor, but like, I don't know if it's the voice directors, but boy, that voice, the way that they like voice the character in general also, just all terrible to me. All terrible to me. I'm so used to Mr. Gomez so much. I'm so used to him. And then are they gonna get in the other guy to do the Tidus scream just because the other guy couldn't do it again? That'd be kind of funny. But alas, you can only worry over so much. Let's see. Boom. Blender. Blender Pretender. Yeah, let's get it right in there. Let's get it in there. I have a project that I was trying to use from a tutorial, but the tutorial was like using the old version of Blender. And I hear that Blender changes its UI like constantly. But I don't know how to use the new UI. I don't know how to use the old UI either, so you know. I think I might just have to go for starting this from the very beginning. So, I think I might have to look at a YouTube video. Blender tutorial for beginners. I probably want something more recent, but I don't... What version of Blender is this? Does it say? Can I look at that anywhere? I mean, it has tutorials on the UI itself. Is there like... Well, I guess, we might be doing something here. so. Wait, that's the wrong box. Give me another box. Eh. We got this box. With other box. Try and make this look a little nicer and neater, maybe. I'm just gonna play all these and see what we got going on. I'm gonna try and lower this down very, very low. And play all.
Hello everyone and welcome to Blender. Blender is a fantastic open source software that is mostly known for its 3D animation and modeling capabilities.
I believe you.
It's a very powerful software that's been used in feature films, games, TV series, and a bunch of other amazing projects such as the ones you see here.
Okay.
But it can also do much more than that. Video editing, compositing, painting, sculpting, visual effects, cloth simulation, particle simulation, fluid and smoke simulations, 3D printing, and as of recently, 2D animation and real-time rendering. So, if you want to learn about any of these, you've come to the right place. This video series will serve as an encyclopedia of sorts for the fundamentals of Blender. In the next few videos, I'll be going over certain topics that should be helpful for both beginners and veteran Blender users, especially with the recent update. So, I hope you find these videos helpful, and I'll see you all soon. So how do we navigate Blender? This may seem intimidating at first, but it's actually pretty simple. Let's start with the 3D viewport. The first thing you'll be curious about is how to select things. Simply left-click any object to select it, and left-click empty space to deselect. You can also press A to select all, and Alt-A to deselect all.
Okay, hang on. Should I be writing all of this down? I might want to write this all down. I'm gonna make categories. Gonna make stuff. Okay. Hang on, go back.
And Alt-A to deselect. A to select all. Left-click empty space. Left-click any select. Actually navigate Blender. This may seem intimidating at first, but it's actually pretty simple. Let's start with the 3D viewport. The first thing you'll be curious about is how to select things. Simply left-click any object to select it, and left-click empty space to deselect. You can also press A to select all, and Alt-A to deselect all.
Hang on. Hang on.
Object to select it, and left-click empty space to deselect. You can also press A to select all, and Alt-A to deselect all.
Okay. Alt-A or A. Deselect all. Select all. I feel like knowing short keys is usually nice to know, so probably doesn't hurt.
Some users may be interested in right-click select, which is arguably better for your health, so we made a separate video about that if you are curious. The next thing you'll want to learn is the basics of navigation, how to rotate, how to pan, and how to zoom your perspective of the viewport. To do that, all you need are these buttons right here. So let's say we want to rotate around our cube. Luckily, we have a very handy gizmo in the top right of our viewport that looks like this. Notice how it responds to our cursor floating above each axis. Go ahead and hover over the blue Z-axis indicator and left click. You'll notice that it brings you directly into what's called top orthographic view.
Okay, just for the sake of this example, not that it's so much of an example, I'm going to open this project. Yeah, that's a lot easier. So this is supposed to be the cave I was trying to make, but I don't know how to how to make it properly, you know? Not sure what I'm doing, but that is what I'm trying to make into a cave. So I hope through this process we might learn what we need to.
This can be done for any axis to snap to its corresponding perspective. However, if you instead click and drag the same gizmo, you'll find a much more flexible way of rotating your view of the world. It's important for some to know that you can also middle click drag to achieve the same effect, but from any cursor position. Now, you'll notice that our view seems to pivot around a particular point in the viewport, that being the center or origin of our grid. This also happens to be where our cube is at the moment. However, what if we didn't want to look at the cube? What if we wanted to look over here or something? Well, now all you have to do is click this hand icon and drag to where you want to have centered. From there, you'll notice your pivot has changed when you rotate your perspective. For hotkey users, simply hold Shift and middle mouse drag to achieve the same effect, but from any cursor position.
Shift middle mouse drag. Well, that's good to know.
But let's say I want to focus back on my cube again. How do we do that? Well, for that, I want to quickly show you the Frame Selected tool, which can be found under View. This will reframe your perspective to focus on the object or objects you have selected. This can also be achieved by using the period key on a number pad. Now that we're this close,
Oh, wait. Okay. So does it always do that? Okay. That's good to know. Change pivot point is probably better to say that.
close to our cube, you may be asking, how do we zoom in and out? But it's pretty self-explanatory. We have a magnifying glass here. Click and drag it to zoom in and out, or you can use the scroll wheel or plus and minus keys on the numpad to accomplish the same task.
Gonna write down these. Gonna write them down. Helps me to write them down so then I remember them, so then I don't need to write them down. Like school. Everyone likes school, right? Everyone loves school.
And that's basically it for the basics of navigation, but you may have noticed that we haven't used the other two buttons in this area, the camera icon and the grid icon. The camera icon will bring you into the eyes of your camera. This is very helpful for setting up camera angles and previewing what will eventually be your output image. Alternatively, you can also use 0 on the number pad. The fourth button here
That's good to know.
is a grid. This may confuse you at first, but this switches your viewport between orthographic mode and perspective mode. I went ahead and set up a scene here to make it more obvious to you, but you may be asking, what's the difference between these two modes? Well, perspective mode is a realistic view of the 3D objects in your scene, which takes into account how far away objects are from you into how it displays the object. The further away something is, the smaller it gets visually. However, orthographic mode ignores all of that and flattens your world so that no perspective is seen. Everything is angle perfect. This is an unrealistic view but helps immensely with making models accurate, especially in relation to, say, a 2D concept sketch. But that's just the viewport. In the next video, I'll be talking about all the different windows we see here, what they do, and how to navigate them as well.
Please do.
Blender provides a lot of information with its interface, and can be flexible enough to fit the workflow you need. Let's go over some of the basics on how to...
Well, actually, let me write down the other part first. Yeah, I didn't really notice. Why are these ones over here for me? I guess it just happened that way. Maybe. I don't have the bottom thing either. Because I didn't have it on layout, maybe? Oh, well, not a big deal.
Interpret and interact with Blender's UI. Before we begin, I want to point out that there is a very handy display at the very bottom of the user interface. This is an informative display that lets you know what each click can do in the context your cursor is at the moment. It also applies to when certain hotkeys are being held down to change the function of certain clicks. For example, if you hold Shift, you can see the information at the bottom changing. It tells us that without holding Shift, your middle mouse button rotates your perspective, but holding Shift pans your perspective. Feel free to refer to this display at any time while watching this series or playing around with Blender to learn more of its features. As a quick reference, here are what some of the mouse icons translate to. Now, the next big thing you'll notice is that each important section of the UI is separated into panels. These panels are scalable if you click and drag any of the boundaries, and they can also be whatever you'd like them to be. Simply click the drop-down menu in the top left or bottom left of a panel and select a different type of editor. You can also create more panels by right-clicking a boundary, clicking Split Area, and then left-clicking at a position of the screen you desire. To delete a panel, simply right-click a boundary, click Join Area, and left-click over the panel you'd like to overwrite. Additionally, if you would ever like to maximize a panel to focus on it, simply mouse over an area and press Ctrl Space. You can also press Ctrl Space again to return. While this is extremely powerful, Blender also provides default workspaces you can choose from that set up the appropriate editors for specific workflows. You can find these workspace options in the tabs above. For hotkey users, you can press Control Page Up or Control Page Down. We will be going over each of these workspaces in future videos. However, for this video, we will focus on the primary editors of the Layout workspace. Further introduction of other editors will be given in editor-specific videos. So, let's begin. If you saw our viewport navigation video, then you already know what the viewport is. This is where our 3D scene is displayed. In this editor, you can perform a variety of tasks that interact with your 3D scene and its objects. However, it's important to note that there are two helpful quick menus in the viewport. Simply press T as in Tools, or left-click this arrow here to expand the Quick Tools menu for the viewport. This includes tools such as the Select box, Move, Rotate, and Scale. For hotkey users, keep in mind you can also use Shift Space at any time to bring up the same tools menu but labeled and at your cursor location.
Space.
This works
Learning.
similarly to a pie menu in that you have the option to hold the Shift Space hotkey, move your cursor to the tool you want, and release the hotkey to select a tool. You can also press N as in number or left-click the arrow on the right to open additional quick settings, which include your item's transformation data, tool-specific settings, and other viewport options. You'll notice here there is an option for the 3D.
Screencast keys. Why are theirs bigger than mine? Why is it bigger than mine? Why do they get it to be bigger than mine? What did they call them? Transform data, tool specific settings. Bodies are getting tired. This guy's too boring. Have more energy.
Here there is an option for the 3D cursor. This is a very powerful tool which you can see right here. This red and white circle acts as the spawning point for any new objects and can be used as a reference for pivoting, which we'll go over in another video. To place it around your scene, simply hold Shift and right-click. To recenter the cursor, simply press Shift S and select Cursor to World Origin from the pie menu, or adjust the location and rotation settings in the right-hand side quick menu. Now, this feels like a good time to explain what pie menus are for those who are unfamiliar. Pie menus are quick wheel menus that appear around your cursor after a hotkey is pressed. You have 3 options when navigating a pie menu. The first option is to right-click to cancel in case you changed your mind. The second option is to press and hold the hotkey to initiate the pie menu, drag your cursor to your desired choice, then let go of the hotkey to select, with no clicking necessary. Or the third option is to let go of the hotkey that initiated the pie menu before moving your cursor, then use your cursor to left-click select the option you like.
Okay,
After you get used to where each option is, this can greatly speed up your workflow while also making several options available with less keystrokes. Throughout the series, you will see pie menus quite often for various different contexts. Now below the viewport we have the timeline. This controls playback of your animation. You can zoom in and out with your scroll wheel, drag the timeline with your middle mouse button, change the start and end frames for your output, and create and manipulate keyframes, all of which we'll go over in another video. The Properties editor contains several tabs vertically to display the properties of your scene, your current tool, and whatever object you have selected. To start at the top, this first tab represents the options your currently selected tool in the viewport may have.
Okay. Give tool and workspace settings. Okay, it does say what it is there. Render properties. Okay.
In this case, the Select Box tool gives you a few different selection options. The next few tabs, which you can see are separated by a small gap, contain your scene-specific properties. Just to clarify, your scene refers to your entire 3D scene. However, you can create more than one scene in a single Blender file by clicking up here. You can also select a scene from existing scenes using this drop-down. This back-facing camera icon is your Render tab. This allows you to change render engines, sampling, engine-specific properties, and other properties that affect your final image and how it's interpreted from the 3D scene. The next icon looks like a printer, and this is your Output tab. This is where all of your output settings can be tweaked before render: resolution, frame rate, file path, file type, and much more. The icon that looks like a stack of photos is the View Layer tab. and is similar to what used to be called render layers. View layers are typically used to separate background and character passes, for example, for easy compositing after a render. However, you'll notice this is only the pass properties, not the objects, and it's for only one view layer, the one we're currently in. To select a different view layer to change its properties, you'll need to go up here, similar to creating a new scene. You can create and select existing view layers here. While we're on the topic, I'd like to point out what this panel above properties is for.
Just view layers and scenes are different. Feel like that's probably something I shouldn't write down, but I've got to write it.
Objects are rendered out in each view layer. You can check and uncheck collections here in what's called the outliner. I highly recommend using descriptive names for your collections and view layers by double-clicking them, but we will go over this in another video.
Collection. Meat cave. Save. This Control S, still save. Saved cave, maybe. Well, it says it saves it. Okay.
Next, we have the General Scene tab. This has other miscellaneous scene properties that affect your scene, such as your active camera, your units, and rigid body settings. Finally, the Globe icon is the final tab of this section and is called the World tab. This includes properties for the sky and air of your scene. In other words, the surface option for your world is the shader used for your sky or background color, while volume allows for volumetric lighting throughout the atmosphere of your scene as a whole, such as fog or mist. For the next section, the property tabs will be specific to the active object you have selected. So in this case, I will select the cube. Our first tab is the Object tab. This contains basic information such as location, rotation, and scale of the object. You can also specify parent-child relationships, which collections it belongs to, and visibility of the object. The next tab is a very important tab for Blender. Represented by a wrench icon, the Modifiers tab allows for powerful manipulation of objects using predefined modifiers. Simply select a modifier from the drop-down menu to add it to the stack below. You can use as many modifiers as you like and change the order or application of these modifications using these arrows. For example, the Subdivision Surface modifier and the Bevel modifier. This next tab is the Particles tab. You can see the icon looks like an object shooting particles out from its main body. In here, you can create particle systems and add them to the object you have selected. Next is the Physics tab, which looks like an orbiting planet icon. This contains several different types of physics simulations and physics manipulators, including cloth, rigid body, smoke, fluid, collision, and force fields such as wind. The next icon looks like two objects wrapped together. This represents the Constraints tab. This tab is very similar to the Modifiers tab, but deals more so with relationships of the objects you have selected with other objects or values rather than manipulating the object by itself. You can have an object copy the location of another object with the copy location constraint, stay above the ground with the floor constraint, or point at another object with the tracking constraint.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
The green triangle icon is for your object's mesh data. To explain what mesh data is, I can tell you that the reason why our cube is a cube is because of the mesh data. If I were to take this exact same object and change the mesh data, its shape would not be the same, but its object properties such as its location would remain the same. Here you can manipulate your vertex groups, also known as weight maps, your shape keys, also known as blend shapes, and your UV maps. Other geometry specific settings belong here as well. And finally, we have our Material tab. This is represented by a material sphere icon and is where you control much of how your object is shaded during render. The material you choose here will affect how shiny your object is, what color it is, and how rough it may appear to be. The final tab is actually in a different section, as you can see. There's a small gap there. This is the Texture tab, represented with a checkered canvas icon, and is not object specific. Textures exist as separate entities that can be referenced for a number of things, including the world, aka skybox, materials, or brushes. Because of this ubiquity, they are in a separate section. Before we move on, let's go ahead and left click to select our lamp object. This is the dotted circular thing you see next to our cube. Once you have that selected, you'll have access to its lamp properties, which looks like a light bulb. This is where you can tweak its brightness, the radius of light, whether or not it casts.
I don't think I have a light in the scene, do I? They don't got like a add light bulb. Can't see the camera because the camera's in here, right? Yeah, the camera's in there. That's not a big deal, but I wonder how you add things into here. Add. Light. Phone. I don't know. Theirs is just called light. I'm just saying. Okay, I think I didn't want that. Oh, getting dizzy again. That's always safe. Ever get so dizzy that you feel like you're gonna throw up?
Shadows and what type of lamp it is. We can
Yeah, I might throw up. I give very dramatic stuff to people. Well, that's kind of cool. So that just lets you make lighting for, because I already saw people in, well, things in Unity with lighting effects and stuff, but this lets me make my own. So that's
also
cool.
left click to select our camera object, which is this sideways rectangular pyramid shape we have here. Now you should have access to the camera options, which include focal length, perspective type, and much more. And
I'll look at you, camera, just as long as I...
that's the summary for the default layout workspace we see when we open Blender. I hope this is helpful for you, and I'll be going into more detail about the other workspaces and what each editor does in separate videos. Selecting objects in Blender is quite simple.
No, it's
we already
not.
went over it in the viewport navigation video, but to quickly review, left click an object to select it, and left click empty space to deselect. But there are other selection tools as well. You can press A, for example, to select all, and Alt A to deselect all. However, what if I want to select multiple objects, but not all of them? Well, for that there is the Select Box tool. This is turned on by default, and with it selected from the Quick Tools menu, you can left-click drag to select multiple objects at once. To
Wait, I have to test it out, just in case. Oh wait, that was the wrong one. Control click drag. Oh. That's interesting. It doesn't change it to deselect though. It just says select still. That's kind of misleading on the tooltip thingy.
select multiple objects at once, simply control-click drag in the same way. You can also enable the box select tool with the B hotkey.
Oh.
But in that mode, you'll be using middle-click drag to deselect objects. An alternative to the select box is to press C for circle select, which
wait, which key?
middle click drag
The default box.
to
C
deselect
for
objects.
circle, right?
An alternative to the select.
C for circle. Wow, I'm so smart. Circle. Even though they just said it, and I was confirming with myself. And I'm getting incredibly dizzy still, even though I've been drinking water.
Select box is to press C for circle select, which acts more like a selection brush and only extends selection by default. You can, however, still use middle mouse drag to deselect while in circle select mode. Another way to select multiple objects is by simply holding Shift and left-clicking objects individually. To deselect using this method, simply Shift left-click the object again until it's no longer highlighted. You may notice that while you Shift left-click these objects, the most recently selected one is always highlighted in a slightly brighter orange outline. This denotes which object is the active object. The active object is the object whose properties will appear in the Properties editor. Now, just a quick tip. If you have objects or geometry obscured by other objects or geometry, it may be difficult to select them. To help with this, I recommend using wireframe mode, located here, to see through your objects. This makes things easier to...
They have that? Yeah, that's a bit easier. I'll write that down. Write that down. Write that down. And then start getting incredibly dizzy.
Select and also allows for selection tools like box and circle select to include otherwise obstructed objects or geometry. Now, it's important to know that each of these selection tools can be used for almost every context in Blender, including edit mode, pose mode, and many of the editors. However, in some editors you will be required to press B before entering box selection mode, such as the outliner. You may have also noticed a select menu in the top left of the viewport. If you open this menu, you'll notice several selection options laid out for you, as well as some viewport-specific selection options, such as Select All by Type, Select Active Camera, Select Linked, and more. Feel free to try these out yourself, but it's important to know that Select More/Less only works in edit mode, which we'll get into in a separate video.
Uh-oh.
Now that we know how to
Getting
select
intense.
objects, let's start transforming them. Transformation refers
I'm
to
scared.
moving things, rotating things, or scaling things. So, let's say I want to push or pull my cube to a different location.
I don't think that's
This would be
possible.
classified as moving the cube or translating the cube. I
I
can
know
open
that
the
word.
Quick Tools menu and select the Move tool.
They use that
You'll
scripting.
notice 3 colored arrows and 3 colored squares appearing on your selected object. This will allow me to click and drag any of the arrows to move the selected object along that axis. If you select any one of the 3 squares, it will move the object along 2 axes, excluding the axis of its corresponding color. For example, the blue square excludes the blue z-axis movement, but moves your object along the x and y axes simultaneously. But you can also left-click drag anywhere in the viewport to move the object along your viewing plane. Now, in case you change your mind about moving your object after you've already started dragging it, simply right-click before letting go of your left mouse button. This will work for all transformations. For hotkey users, you can press G as in grab to initiate the move along your viewing plane. You can then press X, Y, or Z to move it along a specific axis like the colored arrows did. Or you can hold Shift and press X, Y, or Z to move it along the other two axes like the colored squares did.
G equals grab.
You can right-click at any time to cancel the move, or left-click to apply the new location to your object. Fun fact, if you initiate any transformation with the mouse click instead of the hotkey, you can still use the X, Y, or Z hotkeys to perform similar axis-specific constraints on your transformation before you release your left mouse button. You can also switch your transformation entirely to a different one, such as rotation or scale, with their respective hotkeys. Please read the display at the bottom of your window while dragging your object around for more information. To reset the location of your object back to its origin point, simply press Alt-G. Now, what if we want to tip our cube over
Back to origin points.
or roll
Alt-G.
it around? In order to do that, we need to rotate our cube. Let's check our quick menus for that. Aha! Yes, it seems we do have a rotate tool here as well. This will display a gizmo over the selected object or objects, showing each rotational axis. Just like the move tool, you can left-click drag any of the colored rings to rotate along a single axis. But you'll notice there are two new areas, the outer white ring and the inner sphere inside of the colored rings, which you'll notice if you hover over it. The outer white ring can be used to rotate the object along your viewing vector. Imagine your eyes drilling a hole into the center of the object and spinning the object around that axis of rotation. The inner sphere is what you see when you hover over the space in between the colored rings. This can be left-click dragged to enter a free rotation mode, which opens all three axes to rotation, kind of like a trackball on a trackball mouse. This is my favorite mode of rotation as it's the most flexible. For hotkey users, simply press R as in rotate to initiate the rotation along your viewing vector.
Okay, I kind of figured that would be the key, but I just accidentally closed that. Accidentally closed it. My game dev knowledge document that I write all my notes in. That I should probably update more with Unity stuff. I have not. Probably do that. At least I've been saving it.
You can then, once again, press X, Y, or Z to rotate along the specific axis like the colored rings did. But you can also hit R again to initiate a free rotation like the inner sphere trackball did. And again, you can right-click at any time to cancel the rotation, or left-click to apply the new rotation to your object. To reset your object's rotation at any time, simply press Alt.
Okay, Alt-R to reset. I mean, it's nice that it has all this resetting.
R. Now, let's say we want to make our cube much bigger or much smaller, which can be the difference between, say, a tissue box and a house. This would be known as scaling our cube. So let's go check our Quick Tools menu again, and yes, a Scale tool. Selecting this Scale tool displays a gizmo very similar to the Move tool, except instead of colored arrows, it's like colored arrows with cubes of cheese stuck on the tips of them. Cheese. These work exactly the way you might expect.
That was terrible.
Simply left-click drag any of the colored axes to scale the object
I
along
feel my
that
lifespan
particular
leaving me.
big or small. You can also left-click drag the colored squares to exclude one axis from the scaling process. But what if you want to scale the entire object evenly? Just like moving, you simply left-click drag anywhere in the viewport. For hotkey users, press the S key as in scale to initiate the size change evenly for all axes. Press X, Y, or Z to scale along only a single axis, just like the colored arrows with cheese on them did, or press Shift X, Y, or Z to exclude an axis from the scaling, just like the colored squares did. You can right-click at any time to cancel the resizing, or left-click to apply the new size of your object. To reset the scale of your object back to its original scale, simply press Alt-S. Now, you may have noticed that during the rotation and scale procedures, there was a definitive center or pivot to the transformations. This is usually what the orange dot on your object signifies. However, what if you don't want to rotate or scale based on the object's pivot point? What if you want to rotate from the world origin or scale upwards relative to the floor level? That's where the 3D cursor comes in. This red and white circle is called the 3D cursor. It can act as the pivot point of any object as long as you click this drop-down menu here and select 3D cursor. Try it out with rotation and scale modes. You can move the 3D cursor throughout your scene by selecting the 3D cursor tool in the quick tool menu.
Oh yeah.
And left click dragging anywhere in your scene, or pressing Shift right click. You can change the pivot point back to the default median point at any time with the same menu as before.
Strange.
The 3D cursor can also be used for moving your object. I personally love this feature for quick moving your object to a specific point. Simply move your 3D cursor to where you want your object to go. Then go to Object, Snap, Selection to Cursor. For hotkey users, you can simply press Shift right click and then Shift S and use the pie menu to select Selection to Cursor. Just a friendly reminder, if you ever need to recenter your 3D cursor, Cursor to World Origin is also in the same Snap menu. Okay, now let's say I've run into the issue where I've rotated my object, but now I can't move the object along its own upwards axis. I'm stuck moving directly up, and that's not helpful. Don't worry, all you have to do is change this drop-down menu up here from global to local. This will change all gizmos to display the object's local axes instead of the global axes for all transformations. For hotkey users, you can access local axes simply by pressing X, Y, or Z twice instead of once after initiating your transformation. Another helpful tip for transforming your objects is to hold Shift when trying to be more accurate. Holding Shift while moving, rotating, or scaling your object will reduce the sensitivity of your cursor affecting the transformation values.
It just makes
In
it
other
slower.
words, it'll change slower as you move your cursor, giving you more nuanced control over the end result. In fact, holding Shift will achieve the same effect for cursor-dependent values in most other editors as well. For example, dragging a number along a slider. Alright, but what if I have a bunch of boxes that need to be perfectly aligned?
I'll write that one down.
Eyeballing it isn't very practical or helpful. This is where you can use the snapping options located at the top here. This magnet icon toggles snapping on and off, but you can also press Shift Tab. The drop-down menu to the right of it allows you to snap to increments, vertices, faces, volumes, or edges. This way, you can align your boxes perfectly to each other without relying on guesswork. Selection and transformation are the foundation of manipulating your 3D scene in Blender. To add an object in Blender, it's really quite simple. Let's say we want to add another mesh. Maybe a torus, for example, or a donut. Simply go to the Add menu in the top left, go to Mesh, and select Torus. For hotkey users, you can simply press Shift-A to open your Add menu. You'll notice that the new mesh spawns where the 3D cursor is. This is an important feature of the 3D cursor. I'm sure you've noticed you can add things other than toruses. Inside the mesh menu alone, you can see all of these primitives here. Most of them are self-explanatory, but you might be curious about what this monkey option is. The monkey is the head of a character called Suzanne. Suzanne is Blender's alternative to more common test models such as the Utah Teapot and the Stanford Bunny. As a low polygon model of only 500 faces, Suzanne is often used as a quick and easy way to test material, animation, rigs, texture, and lighting setups. Fun fact, the largest Blender contest, which takes place at the Blender conference every year, gives out an award called the Suzanne Award. To delete an object, there are 3 ways to do it. Make sure you have the correct object or objects selected, then go to Object, Delete. For hotkey users, you can press X or the delete key. However, if you press X, you'll get a confirmation message. To confirm, simply left-click or press D. These delete functions also extend to almost every other editor where you can delete things. But it's important to know that the deletion menu in edit mode, for example, can look very different. Instead of a simple confirmation menu, deleting things in edit mode will bring up another menu, which will ask you for more information. For example, you can choose to delete the vertices, the edges, or the faces that you have selected, and each one will do something slightly different. If you delete vertices, it will also delete all connecting edges and faces of the vertices you selected. If you delete edges, it will also delete any faces formed by those edges, but it will not delete any vertices that also share another existing edge. And if you delete faces, it will also delete all edges and vertices within your selection, but not delete any edges or vertices along the boundary of your selection. Deleting only edges and faces will leave your vertices intact throughout your selection, even if they are floating in mid-air. Deleting only faces will leave you all of your edges intact throughout your selection, even if they're floating in mid-air. Dissolve vertices, edges, and faces are operators that try to combine the geometry in a way to act like your selection never existed. It will not always work, but can be very handy for removing loop cuts or extra subdivisions. Edge collapse will collapse all vertices along the boundary of your selection, caving in the geometry where your selection once was. Edge loops will functionally do the opposite of a mesh extrusion. It will reduce your selection geometry down to the next edge loop available. Edit mode has the most complex deletion options available, so while
I just wanna what a look. Ah, okay, I understand now. That's kind of cool. I mean, I don't want to do that, but it's cool.
other modes and editors may have similar deletion options, they should be pretty self-explanatory if you can understand these. In this video, we're going to explain collections in Blender. To do that, we're going to try and separate our scene into 2 groups, one for characters and one for background objects. Collections are similar to what you might call layers or groups in other software. Each collection in your scene can hold objects of any kind for the purposes of organization and or rendering. You can also have collections within collections for further organization. In fact, that's what's already being done, as the scene collection acts as the parent collection.
Collections are more or less folders, but with layers. It's true.
For all collections in a scene, as you can see here. Now, to start us off, let's make a scene that makes sense for our purposes. What we want to do is separate our scene into character objects and background objects. I'm going to go ahead and scale this cube up until we're inside of it. This will be our environment or background. Then I'm going to add a new object, monkey. This monkey, also known as Suzanne, will act as our character. If you take a look at the outliner, you can see that our monkey has already been added to our existing collection. Whenever you add objects in the 3D viewport, keep in mind that they will be added to whatever collection you have selected at the time. In case you can't see any objects in your outliner, your collection may be collapsed down to a single line. This is done by clicking this arrow on the left of the collection name. Simply click this arrow again to expand it. For hotkey users, you can press the plus and minus keys on the number pad. So let's try and move our character into a character collection. Well, for that, there are a few ways to do it. But one of the quickest ways is to simply select the object and right-click for a context menu. Under this menu, you'll see the Move to Collection option. If you click that, you'll be presented with a few choices. If we choose Scene Collection, this will bring our monkey out of its current collection. This is not what we want, and the only existing collection we see in this list is the one the monkey is already in. What we want is the New Collection option. So let's go ahead and click that and name our new collection Character. Quick tip, to confirm the name after typing, simply hit Enter twice. Now, if you look at our outliner, you can see that our monkey is in our character collection. For hotkey users, you can press M, as in move, to bring the same Move to Collection menu for whatever object or objects you have selected. Another way you can add an object to a new collection is to create an empty collection first. To do this, simply right-click any empty space in the outliner and click New. This will create a new collection within the Scene collection. If, instead of empty space, you right-click a collection name, it will create a new collection within the collection you right-clicked. For hotkey users, you can simply hover over the outliner and press C to create a new collection in the Scene collection. And if you happen to have a collection already selected, your new collection will appear under the selected collection. Fun fact, you can create as many collections as you like. You can rename collections at any time by double-clicking or control-clicking their names in the outliner. So let's go ahead and rename our new collection as BG, or Background. We can then move our cube, which is our background object, to our background collection in the viewport with the same Move to Collection menu, or the M hotkey, and then selecting the now existing background collection from the menu. Or we can use the outliner and simply left-click drag the object to the background collection. Now that we have our character object and background object in their respective collections, you can check and uncheck each collection to toggle their visibility. This will turn them off during render as well, for the view layer you have selected. To quickly show you how view layers work with collections, I will create a new view layer up here. As you can see, the checked or unchecked state of each collection is unique to each view layer. But what about our light and camera objects? Let's say we want to have these objects in both the background and character collections so that they are visible whenever we isolate either one. However, when we try to move our objects to more than one collection, it doesn't work. While it is possible to link objects to more than one collection using the Shift-M hotkey, a preferable way is to use collections within collections. Let's take a look at how that might work. First thing I'm going to do is rename our collection to car/BG, car being short for character. If we were to simply drag the character and BG collections into our car/BG collection, we can now toggle all collections within our car/BG collection off or on with one checkmark, but also keep the light and camera objects on while toggling the other two. Functionally, this achieves the same thing as adding the light and camera objects to both character and background collections, as you can keep the main collection enabled while toggling off the sub-collections you don't want to include.
Yes.
If you do happen to use Shift-M to link objects to multiple collections, however, it becomes a bit harder to keep track of, as there will be duplicates in your outliner even though they represent the same object. However, if you do link an object to multiple collections like this, just know that you can remove the object from a collection by right-clicking it in the outliner and selecting Unlink. Now that we have all of our objects in their proper collections, I want to explain a quick tip for when collapsing and expanding your collections. In case your outliner ever gets too busy, collapsing your collections can be very helpful. What's especially great is you'll notice a few icons next to the collection names. These icons represent what type of objects exist within each collection. For example, right now our character collection has only one object. But if you collapse the car/BG collection, you'll see that it contains 2 collections, 2 meshes, 1 light, and 1 camera. This is very helpful for seeing at a glance what objects are within each collection in case you need a reminder. Now, let's say for whatever reason, I want to delete this car/BG collection. Deleting a collection does not delete the objects within the collection. For example, if we select the car/BG collection in our outliner and hit the delete key, the collection is deleted, but the objects within the collection are moved outside of that collection. As a final tip, in the outliner, you can press the eyeball icon to toggle on and off viewport visibility. This will not affect your renders, but will allow you to hide objects and collections while you work. For similar options, you can click this drop-down menu in the top right-hand corner to enable selectability toggles and more. And that's it for our collection overview. Collections are very powerful and the foundation of object organization in Blender. Workspaces are customizable groups of panels or editors that can be used for specific workflows.
Man, there's a lot of these.
Blender comes with predefined workspaces that can be found in the tabs at the top. These are labeled as Layout, Modeling, Sculpting, UV Editing, Texture Paint, Shading, Animation, Rendering, Compositing, Scripting, and an option to add your own. If you can't see all of the tabs, just know that you can use scroll wheel or middle click drag to show more. Simply left click any of these tabs to switch to them, and you'll notice they look different. The modeling workspace is used for creating models by manipulating vertices directly. This is why you'll notice that the vertices or corners of your mesh are now selectable. That's because the modeling workspace automatically brings you into edit mode instead of object mode, as you can see in the top left hand corner of the viewport. You can change into edit mode in any workspace viewport by changing the value of this drop down menu or pressing the tab key. But the modeling workspace tries to make itself as convenient as possible for you to get started modeling. It also removes the timeline, as modeling typically does not require any animation. The sculpting workspace is similar to the modeling workspace, but is used for creating models by manipulating meshes with a brush. Sculpting is a more freeform method of creating models and typically results in higher poly counts not usable for animation. However, it is a great way to start your creation process to then re-optimize your mesh later on. This workspace automatically puts you into sculpt mode, which is also accessible through the same drop-down menu in the top left-hand corner. However, there is no hotkey for this mode. The UV editing workspace is used for editing your UV projection maps, which is another way of saying, I skinned this object and stretched its skin across a flat surface. Anyway, this is a very handy tool for texturing your objects, as textures must be represented in 2D but projected onto a 3D object. You can see the 3D viewport on the right with an object's corresponding UV map on the left. If there was an image linked to this UV map, that image may become visible on the 3D object on the right hand side, which would show you visually how the 2D texture has been projected. Texture paint is probably what some of you were thinking when I mentioned the complexity of UVs. Why paint on a 2D surface and project that to a 3D surface when you can simply paint on the 3D surface directly, like painting an Easter egg? Well, in this case, you can paint any object like an Easter egg. With texture painting, you can paint directly onto the 3D object, and Blender will project your painted texture onto a 2D surface based on the UVs. The shading workspace is a very important workspace used for manipulating materials, particularly with node-based shaders. The workspace puts your viewport into look dev mode, showing you in real time what your shaders would approximately look like at render. You can also access this from any viewport window using these buttons here. For hotkey users, simply press Z and use the pie menu that appears. If you want a more accurate display of your shader, you can also change it to rendered mode. If you play around with the numbers in the node editor below, you'll be able to see some changes in real time in the viewport above. It also includes an image editor and file explorer for any necessary image files. The animation workspace is catered specifically for animators to have all the tools they might need. The 3D viewport is where most of the animation will happen, but the dope sheet, which looks similar to the timeline, will be where all of your keyframe manipulation happens. You may also notice that there is a sliver of the timeline editor below the dope sheet. That is simply to provide all of the playback options, start and end frames, and keyframe navigation buttons the dope sheet does not have. For example, you can click this circle/record icon to start automatically recording changes in your object's location, rotation, or scale as keyframes for animation. The camera view on the left is also a 3D viewport panel, but focused on the camera's perspective. This is great for getting an idea of what the animation will look like at render. Now,
wait, that's kind of neat. It's kind of neat. Oh wait, was that not the actual key? Huh, I didn't do it. Playmat keying. Weird.
there may be some of you who are wondering where the graph editor is. If you want to use the graph editor, simply create a new panel and select graph editor from the editor options in the dropdown. However, the dope sheet is so powerful with keyframe manipulation compared to other 3D animation software that the graph editor is not used nearly as often, but it can still be useful. The rendering workspace
Why isn't it doing it? Wait, go back.
simply viewport panel options, start and end frames, and keyframe navigation buttons the dope sheet does not have. For example, you can click this circle/record icon to start automatically recording changes in your object's location.
Why isn't it doing it then? No, it's still not doing it either. Huh. I wonder why it's not doing it. This guy doesn't have the arrow key on.
Editor below the dope sheet. That is simply to provide all the playback options, start and end frames, and keyframe navigation buttons the dope sheet does not have. For example, you can click this circle/record icon to start automatically recording.
Yeah, it looks like they said something else. Huh. Theirs doesn't say auto keying, it says something else.
Have. For example, you can click this circle/record
No, it does say auto keying.
icon to start automatically recording changes.
F mouse G is what they did. Did I have to like... Okay. I just wanted to figure that out. I didn't really have a reason to, but might as well.
In your object's location,
Might as well make sure I know
or
how to do it
scale
somewhat.
as keyframes
If I
for
ever
animation.
use it.
The camera view on the left is also a 3D viewport panel, but focused on the camera's perspective. This is great for getting an idea of what the animation will look like at render. Now, there may be some of you who are wondering where the graph editor is. If you want to use the graph editor, simply create a new panel and select graph editor from the editor options in the dropdown. However, the dope sheet is so powerful with keyframe manipulation compared to other 3D animation software that the graph editor is not used nearly as often, but it can still be useful. The rendering workspace is used for testing or finalizing the output of your file. If you had a recent render, it'd likely be displayed here. It's important to note that this is the same image editor that we see in other workspaces. However, the image selected is render result, giving you access to slots, which serve as great temporary render test comparisons. These slots are accessible both through the top right drop-down, as well as the right-hand side quick menu, pulled up with the N hotkey, under Image. For hotkey users, you can use J to toggle between the most recent two slots, or use any of the numbers on the number row to go to a specific slot corresponding to that number.
Okay.
The
It just shows you
compositing
how it's going to
workspace
look.
is used for post-processing and After Effects that would add beautification to your renders, such as glow, blur, masks, etc. The compositor in Blender is node-based and is very similar to the shader editor in the shading workspace, but has its own editor in the drop-down menu. In order to start using the compositor, simply check Use Nodes at the top here. This will automatically generate a View Layer node and a Composite node. The Composite node is simply the end result receiver, your final output, and the View Layer node represents how you can use view layers to combine different passes, such as character and background in this compositor. Now you may notice that there is a dope sheet provided at the bottom, which is Blender's keyframe manipulator for animation. So why is it here? Well, let's say you're doing an animation where you want one particular part of the animation to have heavy directional blur because the camera is moving fast, but you want to turn it off after a certain point.
Why are they using some
you'll want to
chibi One Punch
keyframe
Man
your
thing?
blur property. The dope sheet is provided to help you keep track of those compositor-specific frames. The scripting workspace is for those instances where we might have to write some code. The text editor is very flexible.
I think they have scripting on here. Oh, no, they do. They just put it beside geometry.
It can load and save files externally, enable syntax highlighting, enable word wrap, enable word lines, and a number of other useful coding tools. It can also provide easy to set up templates for common Blender script functions, such as UI elements or gizmos. You'll notice there's also a console panel provided on the left. This is for seeing error messages at runtime. And at the bottom, we have what's called the info panel. This is a list of recent operations that have been performed by Blender, which usually correspond to actions the user has taken somewhere in the software. For example, if you select an object in the 3D viewport and transform it, you'll notice a new line appear in the info panel. You can copy and paste these operations onto your text editor for reference on how to use certain functions. And finally, we have our Create New Workspace option. This will bring up a few options, but you'll notice many of them are grayed out.
This
is simply because they already exist in your tabs. However, you can select Duplicate Current, which is a great way to start customizing your own. Simply duplicate the workspace and double-click the tab to rename it to whatever you like. If you'd like to bring a certain workspace to the beginning of the list for easy access, you can right-click the tab and choose Reorder to Front. You can also remove workspaces from the list by right-clicking and selecting Delete. Keep in mind that if you delete a custom workspace, it will be lost forever. In order to save a custom workspace, I recommend setting up a custom startup file by opening up a new file, setting up your workspace, and then going to File, Defaults, Save Startup File. Your workspace will then be included in every new Blender file you create. However, while you are looking through the new workspace options, you may have noticed that there are a few workspaces in the creation options that we haven't seen yet. We may go over these in another video, but I highly recommend looking into the strengths of Blender's 2D animation capabilities, as well as its powerful VFX and motion tracking capabilities.
Cool.
And that's the general summary of how workspaces work. We'll be going over specific workspaces in more detail in their separate videos. As promised, let's talk a little bit about how modeling works in Blender. The workspace itself can already tell us a lot on what modeling entails. As you can see, the object is in edit mode, which is very important for modeling, since it relies on manipulating the vertices, edges, and faces of a mesh. You'll also notice that the modeling workspace opens the Quick Tools menu on the left for us already. While in edit mode, the left-hand side Quick Tools menu provides several more tools for us to use, including Extrude Region, Bevel, Knife, and Loop Cut, to name a few important ones.
This is probably what I want to
We'll go into more detail about some of these tools in their own videos. The modeling workspace also automatically brings us to the Modifiers tab of our Properties editor. Modifiers are very useful during modeling, and we'll be going over a few of those in their own videos as well. Additionally, there are several more options up here at the top of the viewport now that we're in edit mode. Each of these menus will give you additional operators to work with during modeling. That being said, most basic functions will be available through the Quick Tools menu alone. Just to demonstrate real quick, let's say we want to model a chair. You can do that very easily in the modeling workspace by simply selecting the appropriate tools. I'll be going over exactly how I made this chair as we learn more about the modeling tools. Modeling revolves around the editing of meshes. But what are meshes? A mesh is a collection of vertices, edges, and faces that describe the shape of a 3D object. But then you ask, what are vertices, edges, and faces? Vertices is the plural form of vertex, which
Wait, will this be on the test? Will this be on the test? I don't know. I don't know if it'll be on the test or not. I think I might actually want to write this stuff down, because I think if I'm going to do anything in Blender, it's probably going to be mostly modeling. Maybe I'll use that 2D animator at some point. That looks like it could be fun if I could just make a stick figure and stick figure animate. Not necessarily bad. But, I think this will be the main part I worry about. So, before I get into that more, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to grab something to eat quick and, go to the bathroom, refill water and all that. So, I'll be a few minutes, but I'll be back. Let us see if I get any bots while I'm doing that. Hot singles in your area now. But yeah, I'll be right back. Alrighty. Grab my usual of crackers. You know, it's always a good idea, huh? Have a salty snack? I don't know. Okay, so probably gonna take more notes on this one. Stay ahead of time. Once again, let me lower this back down.
Represents a single point. Edges are the line segments between vertices, and faces are flat surfaces enclosed by edges, but some software will also call these polygons. You've probably heard the term polygons or polys when people refer to 3D models. These are the line segments.
I'm gonna go back here.
What are vertices, edges, and faces? Vertices is the plural form of vertex, which
Vertices. How the heck do you even spell vertices? Actually, do they have them in here? Does this thing even have vertices? Just for the sake of it. Let's get rid of that again. Let's add cylinder. Let's just hypothetically restart this, but using Guy as example. Okay, so you can click on these and hit G to alter them. VRTICES. Did I spell that right? It's IC, not I. Okay.
represents a single point.
Is a single point. This will be on the test, so.
Edges are the line segments between vertices, and faces
I select this.
are flat surfaces enclosed by.
Are they selecting the edges?
And faces are flat surfaces. Edges are the line segments between vertices.
Vertices. Okay.
And faces are flat surfaces enclosed by edges.
Okay. Oh wait, is he using a different tool to select them?
Are flat surfaces enclosed by edges. Edges are the line segments between vertices. And faces are flat surfaces enclosed.
Oh. Oh, okay. I just noticed they have this tool right here to select. You're looking at a vertex, an edge, etc. I'm dumb, so, you know. Just gonna take a picture of that. I'm gonna take that picture. I'm just gonna plop it right down into this document so I can see it. Kind of glad that Microsoft Word always just lets you put whatever picture into your Word document. That's that, that's that. Let me just go, because why not? This is my game dev knowledge document. Writing all the Blender stuff down here. So yeah, I did a quick little snip. So I go like, yeah, there's the edge faces, vertex.
Enclosed by edges. But some software will also call these polygons. You've probably heard the term polygons or
So faces are called polygons? Or are they saying the vertex edges and faces are called polygons? I don't know. I'll just say sometimes called polygons. I'm gonna bold the important stuff.
polys when people refer to 3D models. If a model is made of polygons, it is a mesh. These are the building blocks of all meshes, and modeling involves the manipulation of these building blocks to create a 3D mesh. So how do we create meshes? Well, we already have our cube here, which is a mesh, but let's try to add another mesh. If we go into the Add menu we had used before to add objects, you'll notice that it looks a little bit different. Because we're in edit mode, Blender only allows us to add mesh shapes. These are the same options that belong to the mesh category in the Object Add menu. Let's go ahead and add a UV sphere. Right now,
Okay.
it's a bit hidden within our cube, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit G to move it outside. As you can see, this UV sphere is made of vertices, edges, and faces, and so it is a mesh. It should be noted, however, that adding meshes in this way will add the mesh shape to the original cube object's mesh data. If you toggle back to object mode, you'll notice that both the sphere and the cube are considered as a single object. If you want to add a separate sphere object, you're going to want to use the Object Add menu instead.
Oh. So do we not want that?
You can do this by going into Object Mode in the top left. Then go to the Add menu, go to Mesh, and select UV Sphere from there. We will go into the differences between Object and Edit mode in a separate video. Now that you're able to create meshes, it's time to learn how to start editing them. Object Mode
Okay, so I don't need that.
is the default mode of Blender and is helpful for manipulating objects as a whole. objects can be moved around and animated throughout the scene. However, what this object looks like is determined by its mesh data, and mesh data can be edited through edit mode. Edit mode is the default mode of the modeling workspace, but you can also access it by simply changing this drop-down menu here in the top left-hand corner. For hotkey users, you can press Tab to toggle between edit and object mode. While in edit mode, you will be able to manipulate vertices, edges, and faces to change the shape of your mesh. Once finished, you'll be able to toggle back into object mode to move the object as a whole once again. It's helpful to know that your edit mode history and the action of toggling into edit mode all count as a step in your undo history. Therefore, after you finish an edit and go back into object mode, undoing your steps will correctly bring you back into edit mode with all of your edit mode history intact as well. For example, I'm just going to change this cube into a random shape by selecting one or multiple vertices and using the transformation tools to move, rotate, or scale the vertices around. Then we'll toggle back into object mode with Tab. Just to top things off, let's rotate our cube to add an action in object mode as well. Now let's say I changed my mind about something and want to go back in my undo history.
Actually, hang on. He does a lot of
Simply hit
things.
Control Z to undo, and you'll see that our edit mode undo history is still intact and accessible. Fun fact, cameras, lights, light probes, empties, images, speakers, and force fields all do not have an edit mode. But there are non-mesh objects such as armatures, curves, and lattices that do have an edit mode accessible, but may look a little different. For these objects, you won't be manipulating mesh data, but rather the object-related data that they might have. However, the principles of editing these objects remains the same. Manipulate the building blocks to create what you need. Blender can also edit multiple mesh objects at once. To do this, simply select all the objects you would like to edit and go into edit mode. You'll notice that you'll be able to manipulate vertices, edges, and faces of any of the objects you have selected simultaneously.
I guess that would be good
However,
if you're
you won't be
making
able to have
certain
any of the
objects.
objects' mesh data interact with each other, as trying to connect vertices between objects will not work. For example, normally you can press F as in fill to join two vertices with an edge, but because these two vertices belong to separate objects,
I was wondering how they did that. I'm gonna actually test that right now. Do I have to shift it? Oh. Okay. Do I have to shift click? Oh yeah, I already knew that anyway. Yeah, I'll write that in my notes anyway.
Blender restricts me from connecting them. In order to actually connect these vertices, I would have to join these two objects into one mesh. To do this, simply select them in object mode, go to the object menu, and select Join. For hotkey users, you can simply press Ctrl J. Once you've done this, you can now edit them in edit mode with no restrictions. In case you want to separate your mesh again into different objects, you can go into edit mode, select a part of your mesh, go to the mesh menu and select separate. Here you have a few options, but selection is the one you want. This will separate your selected geometry into a new object with its own mesh data.
Oh, what?
Let's talk about how
Whoa. Hold up.
Object mode is the
Hold up.
Once you've done, you can go into edit mode, select a part of your mesh, go to the mesh menu and select separate.
Was it separate in object mode? No, you can do it in edit. That seems pretty important to know.
Here you have a few options, but selection is the one you want. This will separate your selected geometry into a new object with its own mesh data.
Before we get into this, I kind of want to try that now. So, I mean, can I just do like this mesh? Okay, oh no, it is. Okay, so if I separate that, and then yeah, that's neat. I like that. I can see it coming together all in my head already. Just like, ooh, fun.
Let's talk about how to manipulate the vertices, edges, and faces of our mesh while in edit mode. By default, we can already select a vertex with left click and move it around with the Move tool. We can also select multiple vertices with shift left click. This allows us to rotate and scale our vertices with their respective tools as well. You'll notice that when you select a bunch of vertices, there are edges and faces that exist between these vertices that you selected that will also get highlighted. For example, if you select two vertices, the edge between them will be considered selected. And if you select all four corners of our cube, you'll see that the face within these vertices is also considered selected. You can technically manipulate faces and edges simply by selecting the vertices that form them, but you can also change your selection mode. In the top left-hand corner of the viewport, you will see three icons that represent what selection mode you're in. By default, we're already in Vertex Select, but you can also change it to Edge Select or Face Select mode. These will allow you to select the edges or faces directly. For a more intuitive experience, you may enjoy holding Shift and left-clicking these icons to activate more than one selection mode at a time. For example, if we were to turn on every one of these modes at once, you could click anywhere on the mesh to select either a face, an edge, or a vertex at any time.
I feel like this should have been
Box
explained
select,
before.
Circle select, shift select, and most basic selection tools are available in edit mode as well. For hotkey users, simply use the 1, 2, and 3 keys on your number row to change your mesh selection mode. You can also hold Shift and then press 1, 2, or 3 to activate multiple selection modes. Another very important tool while in edit mode is loop selection. Depending on your mesh selection mode, you can select a loop of edges or faces by holding Alt and left clicking. In vertex and edge select mode, you will select edges when alt clicking, and in face select mode, you will select faces. Quick tip, in vertex and edge select mode, the edge loop that gets selected is the one that runs along the edge you alt click. However, when in face select mode, the face loop that gets selected runs perpendicular to the edge you alt left click. The extrude tool is one of the fundamental tools for modeling. But what is the extrude tool? Well,
I don't know.
allow me to simply show you. If you select a face and click the extrude tool in the quick tools menu, you'll see this yellow gizmo.
Wait, I want to do it. Extrude.
This is a normal axis manipulator. But what does that mean? Well, it certainly doesn't look normal, and that's because normals are a type of vector related to faces. Simply put, the normal is the vector that sticks out perpendicular to the surface of a face. If we go ahead and left-click drag this manipulator, you'll notice that it duplicates the face and moves it along the normal axis.
Oh, I didn't know you could do it like that too. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if this is how people do elevators sometimes. Oh, okay, since I let go of it and change it, it sets it back to that. Interesting.
But it also creates new edges and faces between the original face you had selected and the new duplicate face to maintain a connection. This is extruding. You can also left-click drag anywhere else in the viewport instead to move the extrusion along your viewing plane. You can do this for all types of selections, including multiple faces, vertices, and edges. However, if you select multiple faces that point in different directions, you'll notice that your manipulator is pointing at sort of an average value of where all your selected faces are facing. Keep this in mind as we'll come back to it later. It's important to note that if you right-click while dragging the manipulator, you can cancel the extrude, but it will not remove the duplicate faces. This is intentional,
Like Legos.
as it allows you to create new geometry at the same location as the originally selected geometry. This can be very helpful when wanting to scale or rotate your extruded mesh. For example, what if we wanted to create a stack of connected cubes? You could simply extrude, right-click cancel, and press S to scale your extrusion down. This will then let you extrude again and confirm to create the new smaller box. This was made super easy by the fact that the extrusion cancel brings the extruded geometry down back to the original cube surface. However, if you do this on accident and you want to remove the extrusion, just make sure you press Ctrl Z to undo it properly.
Okay.
For hotkey users, simply press E as an extrude to begin moving the extruded selection along its normal vector. Right-click will do the same thing I mentioned before, and left-click will confirm your extrusion.
Man, manipulating 3D objects is so weird. Oh, okay. I understand now. That's how they did it. You're supposed to do that and then shrink it down lower. And then you can bring it up more. And then we can shrink it down more. Bring it up more. Man, that's so cool. Oh yeah, I don't need that one either. No. Control Z.
But the extrude tool has a few more tricks up its sleeve. If you click and drag the extrude tool icon in the quick tools menu, it will open up a sub-menu with more extrude options. The first option is our default option, so we'll skip that. But our next option is called extrude along normals. This is what you might prefer to use if you select multiple faces that point in different directions. This will allow you to sort of push the geometry outwards along each individual face's normals, but still keep the faces connected to each other after
It's like a little
extruding.
house.
This
Or a
is
helmet.
great for adding a layer of thickness.
That'd be
to
like a
your mesh,
face for an
example.
RPG character.
The next extrude subtool is the extrude individual tool. This is extremely helpful for making certain faces extend out independently from its neighbors. For example, you could use this to create spikes or stylized bumps on a surface. Quick tip, this tool works best when faces are selected, not floating vertices or edges.
Whoa, wait. Hold up. That's pretty funky. That's pretty funky. I kind of like it. Learning how to do this stuff is neat.
The final extrude tool is very powerful and easy to use. It's called the extrude to cursor tool and allows you to extrude your selection and extend it to the location of wherever you left click in the viewport. This will
Hold up. Cave done. It's a snake. It's a little stakey. So you can go through the tube. It's just weird. Like that's how people make things. Isn't that weird? It's pretty weird.
still be along your viewing plane, but allows you to work very roughly and quickly when you need to. For hotkey users, if you're in edit mode, you can actually access the extrude to cursor tool at any time by simply holding Control and right-clicking. Now that we've learned about the
Why would they let you
extrude
do
tool,
that?
I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make that chair I made earlier.
That's a pretty
This
pong
is what we
chair.
want to make, and here's how we do it with the extrude tool.
Show me.
Simply select your cube, go into edit mode,
Just for the sake of it, I will yeah, don't save it. We'll use our little cube here. In our modeling mode. Do exactly what this guy does, just to show that I can actually make a chair while following a tutorial.
and scale the cube down along the z-axis. We will then use the
Okay.
Loop cut tool, which will be covered in its own
Loop cut tool.
video, to make some additional cuts on our cube. To use the loop cut tool, simply select it on the Quick Tools menu and left click drag to create a tic-tac-toe pattern like so.
Ah, so that's how you do it. Maybe a little funky, but pretty
This
okay.
will then allow us to use our extrude tool. Using face select mode,
Yeah. Can I like edit those? I made too many cuts. Let me redo that. Boom. 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 I wanted to look more like this dude's.
select the faces you would want to use to form the back of the chair as well as the legs of the chair. You can then go to the extrude tool and select the subtool extrude along normals.
Okay. Oops.
Then simply left click drag to bring out both the chair
Nope. Did I really do this? Did I Man, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, yeah, I accidentally let go of it. It's a very weird chair.
back and the chair legs at the same time.
Oh.
Ta-da! You've officially modeled something in Blender. One very powerful modeling tool in Blender is the loop cut and slide.
Chair. Baby first chair. Let's name it what it really is. Okay. Another new one.
Slide tool. To use it, simply go to the Quick Tools menu on the left while in edit mode and select it. Then, hover over your mesh with your cursor and you'll notice a yellow indicator that seems to loop around your mesh in various ways. If you left click, you'll notice that the loop cut has created a new loop of edges around your mesh where the indicator was, inserting new vertices wherever necessary. This is very handy for manually increasing the number of polygons in certain parts of your mesh for modeling. So that's the loop cut part of the tool, but what about the slide part of the tool? Well, for that, all you have to do is left click drag instead. You'll notice that instead of immediately creating the loop cut in the middle, it allows you to slide the loop along your mesh before letting go of left click. The placement of your loop cut will then correspond to wherever you dragged it along the mesh. If you happen to start dragging the loop cut on accident and would prefer to cut your mesh along the middle after all, simply right click before letting go of left click to cancel the slide. If you notice in the bottom left hand corner, after you've created a loop cut, an operator panel will appear that you can expand. This panel will include settings that will affect what your recently performed loop cut will do. For example, you can increase or decrease the number of cuts along your mesh, smooth your mesh based on a falloff, or slide to adjust your loop cut along your mesh with the factor value. For hotkey users, simply press Ctrl R. However, I should mention that if you already have the loop cut tool selected, Ctrl R will simply act as a left click action, entering the tool into slide mode. So I recommend using the hotkey without the tool selected. Now, there are a few key differences between hotkey users and toolbar users for this particular tool. Assuming you do not have the loop cut tool selected and you press Ctrl R, you will also be able to very easily change the number of cuts you make by using the scroll wheel. This bypasses the need to open the operator panel to change the number of cuts. When left clicking with the Ctrl R hotkey, you'll also notice that it automatically enters slide mode instead of creating
a yeah, meat caves take a while. To it. So wait. Control R. Okay, that's what it means. That's what it means. Yeah, the meat cave, it feels like a dream still, but I'll get there eventually. Still trying to figure out how to even use Blender. I think, just going through this YouTube series so far, I've done like 10 videos now, 12. I've done 12 videos now of it. I feel like 12 out of 43. I feel like I've learned some stuff. I made a chair. I don't know when you just popped in, but I made a chair. A chair has been made. Doesn't have any textures or anything, but it is a chair. It is indeed a chair. I should write that down. Control plus R. Scroll wheel to add more loops. These programs have so much to know. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't see me do it, it doesn't really take too long. So, baby first chair. See, baby's first chair. That is a pretty high up there chair, but don't worry about it. Like that is a chair made up of like 10 polygons. But it is a chair.
loop cut immediately like the toolbar tool does. Simply right-click to default the loop cut back to the middle of the section you cut, or left-click to confirm your slide position. Real quick, let's take a look at the practical application of the loop cut tool. For this, we're going to go ahead and make a chair. First thing I'll do is take my cube
what is this guy's obsession with chairs?
Then I can take the loop cut tool and cut my mesh in a few places that will give me more faces in particular areas.
This is everything that I just saw in the last video.
The bevel tool is very helpful in 3D modeling because it allows you to keep the realism in your hard edges. In real life, no edge is perfectly sharp like it is in the flat shaded cube that we have here, for example. Because no edge is perfectly sharp, most of the time you're going to want to bevel it in some way to keep the edges hard but realistic. So let's demonstrate.
My edges are hard. What are you going to do about that? Bevel. I don't know, they still look pretty perfect to me. Not gonna lie.
What beveling is. There are two ways to bevel. You can either use the bevel tool in edit mode, or you can use the bevel modifier. To use the tool, simply select the tool in the quick tools menu on the left while in edit mode. Let's go ahead and hit A to select all of our mesh.
So wait, can I bevel specific things instead of just using that? Bevel. Oh. Look, I made the Destiny ghost. It is now the Destiny ghost. And all I had to do was click bevel. I made the Destiny ghost. I'm so good at
Then
this.
left-click drag anywhere in the viewport to begin adding a bevel to your selection. Let go of left-click to confirm. For hotkey users, you can press Ctrl B. As usual, right-click to cancel and left-click to confirm. Like many tools, after you confirm the action, an operator panel will appear in the bottom left. This gives you several more settings to tweak before finalizing the action. For example, you can change the width type, which are simply different ways of calculating the amount of bevel. The width is the value you can left-click drag to adjust the bevel amount. As for segments, this setting lets you change the resolution of the bevel, as the more segments you have, the rounder your corners can be, and profile adjusts the curvature of your beveled edges. Checking vertex only option will only bevel using vertices instead of edges as the source geometry. This will look very different, but can be helpful for certain situations. For hotkey users, you can also press Ctrl-Shift-B instead of Ctrl-B to access the vertex only bevel directly. Most of the other settings are perfectly fine at default values, but material is a very powerful one that I want to talk about real quick. To demonstrate what this does, let's go ahead and add a few materials to our object by pressing the plus key in the materials tab of our properties editor. We can then change the color of each material and set our viewport to rendered mode here. Let's go.
Whoa, hang on. Let me do the thing. Base color, like yellow. Make this one like bluish, like yellow and blue. Those are always good.
Go ahead and bevel the mesh once more in edit mode and open the operator panel. The material index allows you to use a different material in your object material list to do cool things like this.
Why is that doing the cool thing? Oops. Actually, wait. Did he say to render it first or something?
What I want to talk about is, let's go ahead and add the plus key in the materials tab of our properties editor. We can then change the color of each material and set our viewport to rendered mode here.
Okay, that's what it was. Rendered. Okay. Okay, that's what it meant. That's what it meant. Huh. That actually kind of looks cool, not gonna lie. That kind of looks cool, not gonna lie. I would shoot that with, like, a laser beam or something, you know? Like, that looks pretty cool. Unintentionally cool.
Let's go ahead and bevel the mesh once more in edit mode and open the operator panel. The material index allows you to use a different material in your object material list to do cool things like this. The material index is correlated to the material's position in the list. Another way to bevel is with the bevel modifier. Simply go to the wrench icon for the mod.
Yeah. Hang on. Become cube once again. Cube. French icon. Bevel. Boom.
Modifiers tab and select Bevel Modifier from the drop-down menu. You can see that this has very similar settings as the Bevel Tool Operator panel. One important setting that differs is the limit method. This is how you can set the threshold for when the modifier should bevel your mesh. For example, by default the limit method is none, which means it will indiscriminately bevel every edge loop or vertex in your mesh. However, if you limit by angle, you can specify to only bevel corners that exceed a certain angle.
This is different than theirs.
To demonstrate this, if we give this mesh a more varied shape,
Old
you'll
version.
notice that changing this value allows us to selectively bevel certain corners, but not others.
Wait, that was the wrong button. Trying to remember all the hotkeys is the actual annoying part.
On the other hand, weight and vertex groups allow you to hand pick which corners get beveled. As with all
Okay, so that makes sense. That one's only doing the angles. Interesting.
modifiers, the bevel modifier is non-destructive, allowing you to work with your original mesh while still having bevel applied on top of your edits with no consequence. The knife tool is a modeling tool you can use to form new edge loops and vertices.
Oh, great. New one. New skill just dropped. Who dis? Return to cube once more. This cube.
To use it, simply go into the modeling workspace or go into edit mode. Then select the knife tool from the quick tools menu on the left.
Okay. Knife tool. Does this just let you make angled ones? Is that why? The loop 2 goes completely around, but this one's
From there,
odd
you can
shaped.
either left click drag or tap left click to begin cutting into your mesh. You may notice at this time that there is still a purplish pinkish line attached to your cursor after drawing. To disengage this knife tool drawing mode, simply double left click or press E. This will then allow you to continue drawing if you so choose.
And knife. That seems like something to write down. That seems like something to write down. So we could chow. Chow. E. Ka-chow. But yeah, that's not looping around it either. Huh. Interesting. And then you press E to get rid of it again.
However, I do warn you not to right click during this stage as it will cancel the cuts you have just made. To fully confirm the cuts you have made, simply press spacebar or enter. As you can see, the visual style
Well, then I could do this, right? Well, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Huh. Making a normal Sonic level. Well, that's neat. Now return to cube.
Of the edge loops and vertices you have drawn have now matched the original mesh. This means they are fully applied. For further details about the knife tool, simply reference the bottom bar of the UI while you have the knife tool activated. Now, if you've ever wanted to cut anything in half, similar to a cross section, you would want to use the bisect tool, one of the knife tool's subtools. To use it, simply left-click drag the knife tool in the Quick Tools menu on the left. This will open up a sub-menu that includes bisect. Hover over the bisect option and release your left click.
Bisect. So what, this like literally cuts it?
From here, you can simply draw a line or cut across your mesh. This will represent where you want to cut your mesh in half. Afterwards, a gizmo should appear that will allow you to adjust your cut. However, the most important settings are in the operator panel in the bottom left-hand corner. Simply expand this and adjust the settings as you see fit. But most importantly, these checkboxes will allow you to fill the face that you cut open, as well as select which side of the cut you would like to keep. Both the knife tool and
Let me try that again. Oh. That is cool. Okay, so I could cut it in half and fill it so that it has a flat surface again, but I could also hollow it out. Or just have it not be anything. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
and the bisect tool can be very helpful for editing your mesh. Shading in Blender is a very important part of look development. In order to
Shading.
get beautiful colors and lighting, you're gonna have to understand shaders. Let's start with the shading workspace. This workspace already tells us a lot about the shading workflow. To start off, the workspace automatically brings us into Look Dev mode in the viewport, a mode that approximates lighting with an environment texture to give the user a general idea of what their shader will look like without fully rendering it. The shader editor will display whatever shader nodes you have for the material of the object you have selected. You will notice that by default, if you select your default cube, there is already a basic shader node setup for you on your default cube's current material. Changing the values on this node setup should affect how your object looks in the 3D viewport above. To change which materials you are editing, simply go here to the slot number dropdown. This is synced to your material list in the Materials tab in the Properties editor. Simply select a different material slot in the list to change the material you are editing in the shader editor. You can also replace the material in the current slot with an existing material using the material drop-down to the right of it. If you only have one material here, you can actually add more materials by pressing the plus icon. You can then either select an existing material through this drop-down menu, or click New to create a brand new material. Another way to create new materials is by duplicating existing materials. To do that, you can press the New Material button, which looks like a stack of papers. Besides materials, the world also has a shader that affects the scene. To edit the world shader, simply change this drop-down menu from Object to World. The File Explorer here can
Work. Oh man.
be used at any time to navigate your hard drive for images and textures. To bring an image into your scene, simply left-click drag the file from the Explorer into any one of the 3 adjacent editors. Dragging an image file into the 3D viewport imports the image as a reference object. Dragging the image file into the shader editor will automatically add it as an image texture node.
They have like... No, I don't want a new folder. Get rid of that. Yeah. Want my picture folder. Yeah, there you go. Did it go into it? Huh, I don't see it coming up as a... Oh, is it because I'm not in object mode? Oh, there we go. There we go. There's your proper thing. Now you can use it as a proper reference. Okay.
And dragging it into the image editor will display it for easy reference, annotation, and basic editing. One important thing about the shading workflow is the different render engines. If you go into the Render tab in the Properties editor, you'll notice there is a Render Engine drop-down menu.
Eevee.
Under this menu, you'll find Eevee, Cycles, and Workbench. These are Blender's 3 different kinds of render engines, and they will affect how your shaders will look at render. Eevee is Blender's real-time render engine. It is extremely powerful and can render physically based shaders in real time, similar to a game engine. However, Cycles is a powerful render engine that, while slower, has slightly more accurate lighting when compared to Eevee. Luckily, Blender shares nodes between Eevee and Cycles, allowing you to work seamlessly between the two without converting any shaders. That being said, keep in mind that the lighting will still be slightly different. Workbench is Blender's preview render engine. Let's say you're working on an animation and you want to quickly render a preview animation instead of calculating all of the lighting and shaders. To do this, you can simply switch your render engine to Workbench and hit Render Animation. There is another way to do a preview render, which is to render your viewport, regardless of your render engine selected. You can simply go to View, Viewport Render. These options will render your viewport exactly as you see it. Now, some of you may notice that the viewport render output and the Workbench render output look very similar. This is because Workbench is the same engine that drives Solid View. Some of you may be wondering now why the Workbench engine is an option when we already have viewport rendering available. Well, the reason why Workbench exists as a selectable render engine is to separate the solid view options and the render output options for your preview renders. That way, you can set a specific look for your preview renders, but change whatever you want while working in the viewport. The Workbench render engine also automatically hides display overlays and renders through your active camera. Quick note, if you want to change the color of a material in Workbench, you won't be using nodes. Instead, you can go to the Materials tab of the object and change its viewport display color.
Viewport display color. Oh wait, it went on to the next video already.
Shading in Blender is a very...
How
You
come
won't
they
be
did that
using
for me?
nodes. Instead, you can go to the Materials tab
Oh, okay, it's just another tab. That doesn't look different.
Of the object and change.
Oh wait, do I have to go to this one? Ah, okay. I have to go to that one. Alright, alright. Okay. Okay.
Its viewport
That makes
display
sense.
color.
So many different options.
The shading editor is a node editor specifically used.
I should probably write that one down.
Used for editing shader nodes. This may seem intimidating at first, but nodes are very powerful tools that allow for flexible customization. Keep in mind that many of the basic functions of how to navigate the shader editor will also apply to the compositor, Blender's other node editor.
I feel like I don't
first
need this
things
one. For what I'm trying to learn, I feel like I probably don't need to care about this. 3-point lighting. Render, cycle samples, EV lighting, rigging, parenting. Rigging and stuff I might want to learn. Dragging constraints, character rigging, keyframes, timeline, dope sheet, sculpts, etc. I feel like I learned what I need to for some of this stuff. Blender, cave.
Dreaming of car for Christmas.
This holiday, get 3 months of Mint Mobile free. See, I didn't even need 6.
All good advertisements.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. As I said last video, we're doing something else today, and by that I mean another Blender tutorial, in which we will learn to model caves. We've seen you really appreciated the last terrain tutorial, so we're back with another. Now, select one of the faces and press E to extrude it. Then rotate it. We will use this to create the base form of our caves, tunnels. Try to rotate the faces in random positions so it will feel like a real cave once it's done. For now, just repeat this process for a while.
Huh. They just used a cube for their cave. Oh yeah, this is because it's still rendering. We can make the viewpoint, like, red or something for meat. Red for meat. Okay. We don't need Ann Knuckles out. Oh, that's to extrude one side. We're just gonna make a baby's first cave, anywho, so. Is there extrude? Go to our Z. Yeah, there we go. Oh.
While until you're satisfied with the length.
Hmm. Hmm. That looks pretty strange already, but it's fine. Yeah, twist it around. Oh, but probably why you want to stay on the Z-axis, huh? Try and make it sort of going a circular motion. Why is it doing that? Why is it crushing itself? I don't know, being kind of weird. Being kind of weird, but that's good enough for now. Made a little snake.
You can also try to make different branches to the cave. If you want to unite two branches back, delete one of the faces and then select the edges you want to unite. Now, press F3 on your keyboard and search Bridge. This tool will do exactly that. It will unite the edges you selected. Now let's continue with the process.
Huh. I kind of want to try that now. If I like, delete that face, and then like this face. How did they do it? That was when they already did it. Already did it. Get a sneeze. Yeah.
Delete one of the faces and then select the edges you want to unite. Now, press F3 on your keyboard and search bridge.
Oh, they just search bridge. Yeah, I mean, that works. Huh. That's kind of cool. Huh.
This tool will do exactly that. It will unite the edges you selected. Now let's continue with the... Now with the shape mostly done, let's make the entrances to our cave by deleting 2 of the faces.
Okay, I did that. Not gonna go as complex as this person's doing, but I just want to see if this works correctly and what we got going on.
Right now, our cave walls are only visible from the outside, so we need to go to Mesh, Normals, and then Flip. Now our cave will be visible from the inside.
Do it.
From the outside, so we need to go to Mesh, Normals, and then Flip. Now
Mesh. Normals. Flip. Okay.
Now our cave will be visible from the inside. Next, we need to add the subdivision modifier and up the viewport to 3 or more to make the wall.
Subdivision. Does it turn it circular?
More detailed.
Okay, so we can have it look not detailed. Have it look very detailed. What are those things inside of it? Maybe we'll learn that. Oh wait, it's because it's not. It's because that's not getting that part. And clip it in enough parts. Well, that's not a big deal.
And now to give it that tunnel look, press R on your model and then make a cut in it.
Like that kind of cut.
Next, select the edges you create. Next, press R on your. And now to give it that tunnel look, press R on your model and then make a cut in it.
Huh? I thought that was the button for it. Uh, okay.
Next, select the edges you created and drag them down. And as you remember from the last tutorial, we need to add a displacement modifier. So, now, go to Add Modifiers and choose Displacement.
It's more like a weird spaceship right now. But that could be intentional. It's a artistic instinct. Why did it not do it on both sides also? Probably because of how I cut it, though. Wait, let me... Eh. You can't really see the line. Oh. Okay, now I understand. We're making it flat on the bottom that way. Okay.
Next, go to Texture and
And then we're adding a displacer. I don't see displacer. Wait, go back.
And as you remember from the last tutorial, we need to add a displacement modifier. So now go to add modifiers and
Deform. It's the third option. Fourth option. Okay.
choose displace.
Yeah. Texture.
Next, go to texture.
Okay.
Sure. And change it to Stucci.
Stucci?
It might look a bit stupid at first, but after we change the size a bit, you'll see.
Oh! Can I not see the texture then?
To texture.
Oh. 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 Okay. That's what we didn't have. We didn't have it applied to all of these things.
Next, go to texture.
They don't
and
have that
change
turned
it
on
to
either.
Stucci.
How did they see
might
it?
look a bit stupid at first, but after we change the size a bit, you'll see the wanted results. In this case, 1.5 is just fine.
Ooh. That does look pretty okay.
Now, if we go back to modifiers and change the strength, you see we can displace the terrain even more. Change it to suit your needs. Finally, the cave is almost done and you can
Huh. That's a lumpy cave you got there.
even choose your art style. You can right click and change Smooth to make it look more realistic, or you can add a Decimate modifier, select Triangulate, and down the ratio a bit to get a low poly look. At last, we just need to add the material.
I don't know if that made it look like low poly or not. Poly want Kuraka? I think that's fine. I feel like that's doing anything. Yeah, I'll just get rid of it for now.
To our cave, and for that just create a new material and select a grayish color for our cave.
I want a good meat color though. It's a pretty decent meat color. Like pink to it.
And do make sure to set the roughness to 1. This is it for our tutorial. Hopefully it was helpful, and do tell us in the comments if your models turned out okay.
So, if I do something like this, how do I export it though? I don't know how to export models. Can I just like... save as. Maybe cave 2. Okay. Render. Forget how I said the point again. Yeah, but I want to change the game review. Why do I not look through the camera? Okay. Where's my light source? Eh. Why is it tilted? Ugh. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very dark. Very, very dark. Hmm. Okay. Well, I want to figure out if I can export this into the Unity project now. That is what I want to do now. Uh, I just like do that out of the gate. Let me swap. Uh, that's good for now. Swap that for that really quick. Well, let's see if I can do this. Okay, can I just import the Blender project? Baby cave. Well, I don't need a camera. Oh, I can unpack it or do that. That doesn't matter. Wait, that's the wrong thing. It looks like it didn't get the inside of it though, correctly. I also have really no idea of how to scale it. Obviously, you can make it smaller than that. Also, I suppose this doesn't have a collider on it either, right? Hmm. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Well, let me just, wait, is it not loading now because it's there? Why is it, why is it showing me that? Oh, wait. It's showing me that because it has a camera. There, turn the camera off. That works. So, just looking at this, it'll give me an idea of what I can do here. So for one, we seem to not be able to see the inside of it. Though I think that was because I made my thing so deformed, it did not work correctly. How do I, like, put things on it, though? Like, this is fine and all. I can figure out how to see the inside later, but the outside looks okay. Obviously some of the inside is seen, but not all of it. Mesh normals flip. Just want to try and figure this out right away. I mean, at least it seems like importing an asset is not too hard if I can just take the Blender file. Maybe cave 3. Turn off camera. Scale it. Yeah, I still can't see inside of it. Some of it you can. The only thing I can think is this. We need to change the boxes. The parts that are going over the boxes are the ones not being seen though, right? That's kind of neat. Well, I guess for myself, asset, import. First baby chair. It comes with light. Well, I can see the first baby chair. Mesh collider is better. I mean, that would kind of work. Your giant big boy chair. That's funny. Ends up making the light bigger because it gets closer to the ground. Oh wait, it's gonna go to that camera? Can I change the light in here still too? Neat, I can't. Yeah, now I can run into it. I could technically jump on it too. But I cannot sit in it. Well, the chair works at least. That's funny. It casts the shadow that I have on the mesh glider. Can I not edit this thing in how do I do that again? I haven't used it for. I think I have to edit. Wait, does that bring up the Blender instead? Oh, you can't do that. I can get rid of that. I can get rid of that for right now. Get rid of you. You. Get rid of you. Throw you in there. So, for chair, how do I edit it again? Yeah, this is what I want. But it brings up this instead. Can you add colliders inside of here? Collision. physics tab. I don't know which one's the physics tab. I guess that's something to look up. I don't like it keep bringing up more Blender tabs. I'm bringing up all these Blender tabs. Yeah, that's fine. It is cube. That is cube. They are all cubes. And I would like to be able to edit their specific colliders. Import settings. Voila, imported transform. Tangent smoothing. Oh, wait, does Blender just have colliders in them automatically? Like I can just do this? I don't see a generate or anything. Sculpting. I don't think sculpting would be what I want either. MUD maps are just how it's drawn, right? If you skinned it alive. So I feel like it would be under that. In the Unity import menu. Generate colliders. Should Unity generate mesh colliders for all meshes? Generate. Apply. So, what did that do? Did it do anything? Also, look at this. That's actually a cool angle. Well, I'm colliding with it. It's kind of giant, but I'm colliding with it. That's a nice scrungy PS1 angle, though. I like that. It's kind of cool. Let's make you smaller, though. Nice little baby chair. Where is that? Going up. Camera, turn it off. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it seems to have the correct colliders now. I guess it contorted to it. Yeah, that seems to be the correct colliders. Okay, well, that's good to know. I wasn't sure if it would generate the colliders correctly, but it appears to do it fine. So now we got that little chair in there, if we choose to care. Well, that took a hot second. So that means I would have to do the same thing to the cave, though. The cave, though, we currently do not know how to make it have... We don't know how to make it have the proper flooring, so we can see it. We can't see the floor right now, which is bad. We want to be able to see the floor. Though, it's getting pretty late. I didn't even notice how late it was. I think I will hop off for now and go eat my dinner. I got a lot of work done today, so I'm happy with that. Even if it was just a chair, we got some good work done. And just for the sake of it again. I want to be dumb for a second. It just looks kind of neat. Even though my character isn't standing on the ground. Still plenty of things to work out, but we're getting some stuff going. I'm pretty happy with the results we got today. Learned more about Blender, got more stuff on my Blender notes. We possibly figured out how to make a cave, though it seems like I'll have to fiddle with some more settings. But more or less we figured out the the inklings of how to get cave on here. And it seems like putting Blender stuff in here is pretty easy, so that's nice too. But, for anyone who popped in, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed watching me learn things. Or not. And we'll be back on the next one, whenever I happen to stream again. So till then, catch you later. Bye.